This is HP7974 tape drive that's behind me, and we're going to be talking about it and some of the media that it used, and show a little demo of it running some diagnostics today. So let me stand up and open up the inside of this so we can see it a little bit better. So first of all, this drive here used magnetic tape media in a reel form factor, so there's magnetic tape just threaded around this reel here. Several different sizes. This was probably the most commonly used size. There's also smaller reels and so forth. And this particular reel had a strap around it that was used to hold the tape on. Little rubber piece of rubber here that an operator could use to kind of keep the tape from coming off. This particular form factor was used in addition to, especially on very high-end systems that had auto-loading tape drives, mainframe systems, would have a reel like this where it would get mounted and the tape drive itself would automatically open up the canister, spin it, and using an airflow pull the tape out of this canister and then thread it on the tape drive. But this particular drive that we have here from HP is a manual load drive. So operator that's putting a tape on would have to manually thread the tape through here. So just a little bit about the drive. 7974, introduced in the early 1980s. It was, I believe, probably a lower cost version reel tape drive. There's the 7978, which was a higher end streaming tape drive. 7976, which was an auto load streaming tape drive. This particular drive has the capability to do both streaming transfers and start-stop transfers. And in a nutshell, what that means is a streaming transfer is once the tape drive gets the tape moving, which is very expensive in terms of performance for tape drives. Once it gets that tape moving, it wants to have a really big buffer and just keep that tape moving and transfer as much data to the tape or read it off the tape as it can. And the whole purpose, key to having high performance is to keep that tape moving. So that's streaming. Start-stop is if you have a bunch of little records or relatively smaller records, or the CPU or I/O system is not able to keep up with the streaming drive, which is actually the case we have here. Then start-stop, it'll write a bunch of it'll write smaller records, and it doesn't have, the bottom line is it doesn't have as high a performance as a streaming drive. 7980 drive, which is the other tape drive that we have on this 3000 system, is just a streaming only drive. So it does very well if the system can either read a lot of data or send it a lot of data and keep that tape moving. Unfortunately, we have a low-end 3000 here, so it struggles sometimes to do that. Anyway, this is a tape drive. The operator portion is over here. We have a status display, which right now is saying door because the door is open. We have various buttons that operator would use. We have a diagnostic button that can be used to enter a diagnostics mode. An address button that can be used to enter the HPIB address for the device. Right now that's programmed to be HPIB address 2. And then rewind, load button, that kind of thing, on-off button. I've gone ahead and powered this up so that we can go ahead and just load the tape drive. Go ahead and load a tape on the drive. Here's the supply hub up here. Take-up hub down on the bottom with a take-up reel, and the tape is just threaded. There's a blue line that shows the operator how to thread the tape, and right now I have the cover off. This just shows the read-write head. There's some sensors to detect the beginning and end of tape here, and then the read-write head is under here. That's what actually, this side of the tape is going to be the front of the tape where the read-write head makes contact with the tape and reads the data off the tape. And then on the back side, where these sensors are pointing towards, is where the beginning and end of tape marks are. So we're going to use a smaller tape like this that's in a canister to do our little test and just to see how it gets threaded and so forth. So the way this, and actually let me put the cover back on here real quick. Cover this up before we mount the tape. So the way this would work is an operator would get a message on the console saying some user, or more likely a batch job, needed some data that was stored on tape. The message would appear on the console saying, I need a scratch tape, or I need this particular labeled tape, tape with a particular, some kind of data label on it. The operator would go to a tape library, find that tape, and then mount it on the system. They would just come out, open up the door, and then put the tape, push it on. And so the hub here is going to grab this tape and hold it firmly. And then since this is a manually loaded drive, we need to spool out some tape here. And we're going to carefully, so that we don't stretch the tape, hopefully, and minimize how much we're touching it, thread it through the read-write heads here. And unfortunately, there we go. This drive is not that great for being operator friendly. And then we're going to thread it on the take-up reel, and there's some holes here we can put our fingers through so we can get a grip, kind of press gently on the tape, and thread it through here. That doesn't sound, no, that's, there we go. Oh, that's the problem. It's not threaded underneath there. Okay, so, you know, tapes tended to be, there we go, now it's threaded correctly. That was one of the big problems with magnetic tape, was just the operator having to manually handle tapes. So that impacted the reliability and so forth. So we've got the tape loaded. What we're going to do now is, we've got the tape mounted up here. We want to load it, and then we're going to run online diagnostics so we can see the tape in action. There's a switch up here which indicates that the door is closed. Right now, if I press the load button, it's not going to do anything because the door is open. But we want to see it load the tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that button. So that indicator just changed from door to OK. And then I'm going to press load. And when I press load, we're going to see this tension arm and this tension arm come up. This will go down here, this will go up here, and it's going to make sure the tape has the right amount of tension on it. This drive reel right here is the thing that actually determines how fast the tape gets moved and so forth. And the job of these hubs is just to and these tension arms here is just to make sure that the tape is essentially not stretched, that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to press load, and we're going to see these tension arms actually load the tape. Okay. Whoops. Okay, so what that means is I didn't have enough tape loaded on the take-up reel. So we're going to try this one more time. Get this guy loaded here. Let's see. Oh, there we go. There we go. Again, don't stretch the tape. My user is probably asking, where's my tape? I asked that tape to be mounted 15 minutes ago. What's going on? Why is it taking so long? Okay. Okay, so we're going to push this button here. Let me get around over on this side so I don't block it. So we're going to push load. Why is it telling me? Oh, let me hit reset. There we go. Load. Okay, so now it's loading the tape, and what it did was these sensors that were up here looked for a beginning of tape mark, which is a piece of silver that's on the back of the tape. And so right now the tape is actually positioned at what's called the beginning of tape. It's actually not the beginning of the physical tape. It's the beginning of the portion of the tape that holds the data. So that is on there. So what I'm going to do now is, so this indicator status light says, okay, we're at the beginning of tape. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to press the diagnostics button there, and we want to run, so there's mini diagnostics on here. There's actually diagnostics that will read and write different length records on the tape, or write different length records and data on the tape, and then read it back just to confirm that things are working correctly. So that's what we're going to run. That's test number 107. And so diagnostics, we're going to go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Oh, no, sorry. Test 101. So 100, 101. And then we're going to press enter. And it's going to start running that test. And so the status indicator up here is saying we're running test 101. It's going through and doing various reads and writes, writing data on the tape, reading it off the tape, different linked data records, and so forth. So one thing while this is running this test I can talk about is just to say, one of the things that tape drives could do, magnetic tape drives could do, is read and write data backwards. So it looks like it's going forwards right now, and now it's probably reading data backwards, just reading the data that it wrote off the tape. And again, this is to improve the performance of data transfers on the drive, because just because you may already have the data on the take-up reel down here doesn't mean you want to rewind it all the way back up. If you can read it while it's being rewound, then that just makes the performance a little bit better in terms of getting data off the tape. Okay, so it's finished that diagnostic, and what it's telling us is that, okay, there's a code 1 for function 124, fuel replaceable unit number 24. So there was some kind of issue. It may not be a problem. It may just need some adjustment on one of the components on the tape drive. But this particular diagnostic, when it was doing, or it may be a bad tape too, found something that an operator needs to take a look at. So it's telling us that. What we're going to do right now is, so usually if a tape was being read or written, the job that was using it was finished with it, what it would do is rewind the tape, and then the operator could come and take the tape off, and let's go ahead and do that. So what we want to do is take it out of diagnostic mode. Whoop, reset. Take it out of diagnostic. And what we're going to do is just hit the rewind button, and it's going to rewind. The tension arms will, after it puts all the tape up here, they're going to go back to their original position and so forth. And then what the operator would do is just, they just come up, open the door, press on the center here, pull that tape off, put it, the strap back on, or else just put it in the canister here, and then return it to the tape library. So, widely used method of storing large amounts of data and transferring large amounts of data between systems for HP systems, 1970s, 80s, 90s, and so forth, and probably still used in a lot of mainframe systems.